Hi and welcome to module 13 in this Django course. The last few modules we've been creating an e-commerce app. Now we are ready to start looking at the front end. The back end's ready. We've done the models, done the managers, we've done the views, the URLs, good to go. We are now looking at templates, template tags, things like that. So this is going to be a good one, a fun one. This is where we get to see the product of all of the hard work that we've put in so far. I'm looking forward to this one. I hope you'll join me. I'm here following every step of the way. Let's jump straight into it. Okay, so let's open up GitHub. Here we are. This is the GitHub repository for the course. Link to it is in the description below. Whilst you're there, drop me a like, add a comment, subscribe to the channel, click the bell. All of that kind of stuff really helps me on the channel. That's enough of that. So in GitHub, you want to just float your mouse over main here and scroll until you find module 13. Okay, module 13, when it opens, click on steps. Click on module 13 in steps. Now you have access to all of the modules in all of the branches. Don't worry about it. It's just I like to follow that process. Let's look at VS Code because it just saves me clicking and everything, saves it being too clunky. So the first thing you want to do in this markdown language instruction, step-by-step instruction, is to make sure that your repository, your development directory, or root directory that we've been using is matching up to what we have here. Okay, so just make sure you've got the right files in the right place so when you fire into the virtual environment and the development server, everything works. Worst thing in a course is getting to a certain point, tutor's doing one thing on the screen, you're doing another, it all falls down. So I've always tried to make sure at the start of each of these files, you can mirror your directory against my directory. And if you don't, you can always just pull down from that particular module. Okay, so use this. Okay. CD into the root directory, fire up your virtual environment as always, and also if you like, you can fire up a server. I've already got a server here and I've got a virtual environment up and running. So just get that ready, get that done. So let's follow on from where we left off in the last module. We've got our views, we've got our URLs, got our models, our models, and we've got our e-commerce manager. So a manager that allows us to work with the Stripe API and SDK. Ready to go. That's the back end done. There might be some bugs, we'll fix them, not to worry, but the back end is done. We now need to think about templates. Now we've looked at templates in this course already. We've done some, we looked at block tags, we looked at loading scripts, we looked at extending HTML docs, we looked at if statements, if template tags, we looked at some filters, so the safe filter. In this one, we're going to create our own template tags because we will be using AJAX in the next couple of modules. And one of the things that I want to do is when a user just clicks a button in the template, say add to shopping cart, I want that item to, that request to go through the view that we wrote in the last module, add that item to the cart, change the stock, and change the number in the cart in any element that displays on the screen. That's what AJAX is good for. It changes a whole bunch of stuff without the need to reload the screen. So that's what we want to do. And to do that, I'm going to create a couple of little buttons that help us. So HTML buttons and template tags. It's a really good novel way of doing it. I hope the code is helpful. I found it really helpful when I learned this myself. So let's get started. Let's create some template tags, okay? We are referencing template tags in our new template, so we need to create these. Create a new directory in e-commerce called template tags. So we want these. These are e-commerce template tags, so it needs to be in e-commerce. One sec, did I do it like that? Yeah, I did. Questioning myself. So in e-commerce, new folder, template tags. And within that, we want a new file called e-commerce tags.py. Oh. Happy days. Let's go back to GitHub and we will copy the chunk of code, nice and easy in GitHub. Back to VS Code, and we want to dump this code in here. Okay, so we'll save that. It looks like that's not being used. No dramas. In VS Code, when you have certain extensions installed, it'll highlight your code when it thinks it's wrong. Not always correct, by the way, because it's saying that this is wrong when it's not. But this here is just a slightly different hue to the others. That suggests that I'm importing item. I'm not actually calling that class or model. So I can delete that, but I'll leave it in there. But you'll find with VS Code, with the extensions, it acts like an IDE, and that's why I like it. Anyway, we've got some imports here. It's got template, so you need that when we're creating template tags. From Django, template loader, import render to string. We need that in these template tags. And then so we're using relative import. So from .models, import item, from .utils, import e-commerce manager. Okay, so we're using relative on this. Register template.library. Okay, so when we're creating template tags, you need this. Now you can look at the Django docs for template tags. Should I get on the screen quickly? Let's just go Django project template tags. There we go. How to create custom template tags and filters. This is kind of what I followed. Okay, so if you want to find out more, have a look here. Okay, link to this will be in the description below. Okay, VS Code. So we've got register as a decorator. Simple tag takes context true. We need to pass context through to this template tag. It'll all make a lot more sense when we've created the templates and HTML. Okay, so bear with me. You can keep pausing and going back in this video. You can keep referencing the code in GitHub. It's nice and easy. Just don't get too bogged down in all of the detail right here and now, because in the next module, module 14, and the previous module, it kind of link it all together and it makes a lot more sense. I've got a doc string here. Handles the logic for a button used to add items to a user's cart. So remember that we've got that add and remove method in our model, and we've got that add and remove view and URL. This kind of links that. This is kind of the front end button that kind of makes the request. Yeah, that's what we're trying to do here. So we get user from the context. So we're passing the user through from the front end. Okay, so we must do that. We're passing the user through. We're then instantiating the e-commerce manager with the user. Okay, let's remember we always need to pass through the user. That's the first argument. Everything else is bonus. We just add it through as a keyword argument. Okay, we do nothing when the user isn't authenticated. So if the user is just if they're not authenticated, you return nothing at all. It does nothing. Okay, so we kind of go, nothing happened. Away we go. Target model. So we find the target model from target.meta. So we've got target here. One sec. Oh yeah, so pass through target context. We pass through target. So the target, and then we use meta, app label, meta, object name. So we create, that's the target model. So in this case, it would be item or cart item. We undo is false. Don't worry about all of this. Actually, so the undo false and the undo true, that is what we use in the template to render a different font awesome logo. So it can be a block logo, or it can be just an outline. Okay, so that's what we're trying to use. So we're trying to pass context through to the button to render certain colors and icons and things like that. And that's what all of this is doing. It'll make more sense when the template's up and running. So we're calling the cart object from e-commerce manager. So item field, cart.items. So if item check, undo equals true. So if cart.item check, which is a method in a utils. So item check, is it in the model? Yeah, there we go, item check. So actually that's a method in the model. So in cart, so the item check, what that does is it checks to see if the item is in the cart items. Remember we talked about this in module 10, I believe it was. So this is the method, so we're calling that. Okay, so does this item appear in the cart items? Undo equals true. So if it appears in it, it's true. If it doesn't, it defaults. Well, sorry. So actually, this logic, it just changes undo to true if it's true. If not, it just defaults to false. Okay, so that's what we're doing there. Then we've got quantity equals cart.quantity check. There we go. So what's the quantity in the cart? And then what we do is we render this to string. Okay. So e-commerce item button.html, we haven't created that yet. And then we pass through all of that fancy stuff through to the context of the item button. So when in the item button HTML, which we'll create in a few moments, we now have access to all of this. We've got target model, object ID as string. Okay, so we'll add it to values, values, HTML IDs, HTML classes, and things like that. It'll make more sense in a second. So this is our item button. So we'll have a little button. We'll also have an item button version 2. So this is being used to remove items from a cart. The reason I needed 2, it will make more sense when we render this in the HTML. Okay, when I was writing this course, I mean, it could have been like 20 or 30 modules, and we would have done little bits at a time and keep double backing and refactoring. But actually, I found that just having 2 different buttons helped a lot. So this is basically doing almost exactly the same as the item button, except it's always removing stuff, and it's used. The HTML that we create it looks different. The button looks different. I think it's just a cross. You click cross and it just removes that particular item. Whereas the other button is a font aware icon, which has a little picture of a shopping cart, right? So we just got 2 different rendered buttons, but they do very similar things. They are our template tag that we will be calling in HTML buttons. So let's go ahead and make those buttons, right? So scroll down, So in templates, we now need a directory in templates to sort our e-commerce application templates. When it's created, you can go ahead and create a new HTML file in templates e-commerce and call it item button HTML. Hope that makes sense. If not, I'm just going to show you. So we need new folder e-commerce, new folder. No, we just need item button. So we don't need a folder at all. We need a new file called item button.html. We carry all of that over, dump that in there. So we're loading static. Remember, that's just a template tag for loading the static directory, so we have access to it. This adds a plus to allow users to add items to a cart. I think it actually adds a cart plus. Okay, we'll have a look. It took some time to develop this course. I did a lot of refactoring over the course of a couple of weeks, so some of the comments might be out of date. Forgive me. So this is just an A tag, okay? This is a HTML A tag. Then you see the class is item. It's a button, so this is bootstrap stuff, right? So the class is item. That isn't bootstrap. That is item is a class that we're looking at. Button success, that is bootstrap. Now the model equals, so this is an attribute we're adding. Model equals target model, okay? We're passing target model from the e-commerce tag. The target model is target model. The target model is that, okay? So actually what we've got here is we're joining 2 strings together with a dot. So what that will be e-commerce dot item. And that will be the model. ID equals target underscore object ID. Okay, so the ID, we're now creating that. So that's a specific ID against that item in our database. So if this button could appear on all of the different items, but the action will be different because the item ID will be different. Does that make sense? The action is add, so we're adding to the database, not removing. Item, see what we're doing here? So the class is now item dash object ID. Now we can refer to that in the CSS file. Font awesome, we've installed that. We installed that in module 11. Sorry, one second. So I've got a bit of a frog in my throat. And then we've got span, where we've got item count. So this is the number of items that we've got in the cart. So we've got object ID. Okay, so that is the button. That you'll see what that looks like when we actually add that to our HTML. That's that bit. We now need to add another one called version 2. So let's save that as V2. Now we've got another button in there called V2, and all we need to do is replace that with this code. So it's a little bit different. I mean, I probably could have changed it, to be fair. But hey ho, we are where we are. So this is the remove button. This is just the cross that allows us just to remove it. This adds a plus to allow users to remove items from the cart. So that actual comment is correct. So you look, the style is color red. So I've got some built-in CSS into this. So the cross is always, it would be black. We're saying no, make it red. Class is an item. then we're passing through the model, the ID, so that when we click this particular button, it knows to remove that item from the user cart. Okay, that's what we're doing there. It takes some time to go through that code and how the logic works, but when it sinks in, it makes a lot of sense, and it opens a lot of gateways to do some funky stuff with front end and back end. So create a new file in HTML static called main JavaScript. Okay, this module is quite heavy. Okay, so new file, main.js. This is not a JavaScript tutorial. I'm going to put that out there. So I'm not going to spend too much time going through the JavaScript, okay? I could lose you, but I'm going to look at it anyway. Okay, so this is the JavaScript. So we're now in main.js, save. Okay, so we've got a few just JavaScript functions here. I'm not going to walk you through how it works. I just want to walk you through what it does. If you want to do a deep dive on the JavaScript, by all means do it. This is a Django course, not a JS course. But we are wiring up. It's important to understand how to wire up JavaScript to a Django app, okay, and understand jQuery and how AJAX works. So you've got some very good AJAX examples here of how it can work, okay? So by all means, use this code on your own project, but I'm not going to bog myself down in how it all actually functions. But this is a function here that adds a load. It takes a button in a form and it removes the word submit and it changes it to loading whilst the AJAX call is being made, and when it's finished it then spits out a message and says submit again. So it returns the old message or the old wording. Okay, so that's just a little function to add loading and maybe a spinner to the button. Okay, we've then got a bunch of AJAX controls, and then we've got this function at the bottom. This function at the bottom here is important. When you're using AJAX, jQuery, when you do a post request on a form, you need to get the CSRF token from the header. And this function here does exactly, it gets the cookie, right? So it gets the CSRF token from the cookie and it appends it to the form submission. And that way Django is expecting the CSRF token, it gets one and it works. If you don't have this function, it just won't work, okay? So that's what this function at the bottom here is doing. Just go up now, we're looking at the AJAX controls, okay? So to alter the like and bookmark buttons, that's a hangover, there is no bookmark button. We've got some buttons here. So this is AJAX controls function. So we instantiate these functions with this init here. Item source pay. We've got item. So this is what we're using when we click the item button. So a.item, remember this is an a tag, yeah? Class is item, so a.item is an a tag with the class item. So when that occurs, i.e. when it's clicked, we go through and do this function here, okay? So we get the object, we get the target ID, we get the action, we get the quantity, okay? So we get the object prop disabled true, okay? So we actually, we mark this as disabled to start with, and then we make an AJAX call. Because we'll have jQuery installed, we've actually installed jQuery in our base HTML, we have access to AJAX. We get the URL, which is items, add and remove. Remember, in URLs e-commerce, we have items, add and remove. So this is the URL we're calling. It's a post, and then we post all of the data. So this is the data. Think of a form submission. You access the form post by request.post. We'll access it in the same way. Request.post, and this is the post data. Okay, so we'll access target model with request.post.target model or .get target model. .get object ID, .get object quantity, and action. Remember, in the view, where is it? There we go. So request.post object ID. If we don't post one, it will get a validation error. Action. Yeah, so this is what we're posting through. Yeah, action, object ID, object quantity, target model. So we're expecting those keyword arguments in the data of the post data. So that's why we're posting it. Now, if it's a success, we'll get that. Anything else, it does nothing at all. It just nah, mate, it's not working. We don't. I mean, you could have a error function as well. We don't really need it. This is success. Okay. So we've got function data. So this is the data we're passing back. Remember, we're passing a data JSON. We're passing data. So we get from data result success. So if it's a success, we do all of that. We change the count. So everywhere where there's a count of the cart, we change it. Everywhere there's item total price, we change it. The item where we look for an ID of stock input, we change that to the the new stock. Quantity input. So what we're doing, we're making a call via AJAX, we're getting a response, and with that response, we're adding all of these different numbers and CSS to the correct elements in HTML. So that way you don't need to reload the page. Okay, and then we're calling show alert. Now we haven't got show alert in here, but we will have soon. That's just we're going to be using Toaster to show alerts, which will be all success. You've made a payment, right? So we're calling show alert. We're passing through the result, the message, the result to lowercase and redirect. So that will say success. If it's success, it will be green. If it's error, it will be red. If it's a warning, it will be orange or amber. It will show the message of the message, and then it will redirect if there's a redirect that's put through to it. So if it redirects into home, it will redirect. If it's false, it just won't do anything. It will just show the message. Okay, that's for item. We won't look at source. Don't worry about that. Same again. Look, it's either we're updating the source to be default. That's what we're doing with an AJAX call, and then we've got pay. So this is we're paying. We're calling the pay. Remember, we're posting that invoice. So, but we're doing it via AJAX. Okay, so that's our JS. We will be adding more to it. Next, in the static, here we go. We're creating the alert, right? So in static, we now want a new file called alert.js. And this is the show alert function. Okay. Okay, what that's doing is accepting the title, the message, the type redirect, and with that, it's rendering Toaster's message based on what the message and error is, or what the type of message is. So it's a success, error, or warning. Okay. Don't need to go into that. It's just another package that we can use on the front end, right? You can go in the docs and have a little look. Do you know what? Should I open them up? Why not? Let's go Toaster. Where is it? So, got the docs here. It might just be there. Do you know what? I'll get the link. I'll put it in the description. Let's not bog ourselves down with that. Okay, so we've now got the alert in our project. And lastly, we need to update base. Okay, so with base, we are now pulling in some other libraries, and I'll show you what's what in a second. God, there's a lot going on here. Done. And then we'll put a pin in it, we'll fire everything up and see if it works, right? So we need to go back to base in templates, Control A, Control V, Control S. Okay, let's move this out of the way. Should have moved that earlier. Okay, so what have we changed? Still got all of this going on, no changes, except we've now got Toaster alerts. So we're using the CDN to get the JavaScript, sorry, the CSS for Toaster. Got it. I've already got Font Awesome, got it installed already. This is our own CSS, we've already done that, no changes there. Now we've got the side nav, okay, just make sure that's all going to probably all work. Now we've got e-commerce. So remember we added that context processor. We added installed apps into our context processor. Now we're saying, look, if e-commerce is in installed apps, then we show some e-commerce links. So we've got item, we've got cart, we've got orders. If they're not authenticated, then we just have sign in, sign up. Okay, so we've added this. And the reason we've got installed apps in our request is because we've added a context processor. Then got the div containers the same as, we've got jQuery, we added that in module 10 or 11. Bootstrap, same again, we've still got that, and then we've got Toaster. So this is the JavaScript for Toaster. We've got that in the bottom of the HTML. Now we've got these two as well. So we've now created the alert.js and we've created the main.js. The reason the alert is above is because we're loading that before main, so we have access to it in the main.js. Okay, so these are the two files we just created. Save that. Close that, close that, close that, close that. We don't need any of these open. Right, moment of truth. This really is the moment of truth. In the last 3 modules, I haven't even opened up my browser. So let's go ahead and collect static. Let's open up our terminal. We have virtual environment already running. Let's collect some static. What's that doing? We want to put yes. That is now moving all of this gubbins here, the alert, main CSS, main JavaScript, and everything else, static files, over to static files. Now this is going to take a second or two. The reason it's taking a second or two, or even a minute, is because we've installed Font Awesome. And Font Awesome has thousands of different icons. It gives us access to it. I mean, it's a bit overkill for using one icon, but I wanted to show you how to add it to a project. If you follow this process, what I've done, it should all fire up and work out lovely. So we're only actually using the free Font Awesome. If you need to use the premium stuff, you need to get a Font Awesome ID and add that. Go to the docs in the package manager and it will tell you how to do it. We're using a free version. Okay, so that's still going. At the end here, it's probably going to say that there's like 1,000 added to your static files. Let's give that a second. I'm just going to pause it. I'll come back when it's done. Well, that took 2 or 3 minutes. You can see now 9,664 static files have been copied across. So if we look in static files, Font Awesome, sorry. I had a snack whilst I was waiting. Forgive me. It's moved all of this across. Now you can look at SVGs. Oh, I've got loads. All right. That's why it takes so long. Now, if your app, and most apps do, they use icons throughout the project, you know, across buttons, nav bars, footers, all sorts of stuff, you know, little pop-ups and what have you. You know, you might have access to, like, say, 50 or 60 of them. I mean, it's a bit overkill for this project. I'm using like 1 or 2, but you now know how to add it to a project. So, like I say, forgive me. So that's all good. We've now got them all in the static files. I'm going to sneeze. Sorry, guys, I keep pausing. I must be coming down with something. I'm sneezing well. So we've now got all of our static files in our static files directory by using the collect static command in Django. We're good to go. So now what we need to do is fire up our virtual environment and our local development server. Now mine's already running, right? Yeah, mine's already running. So if I go in here, go incognito. Right, always advise you to go incognito. It will load up the most recent CSS and JavaScript. If you don't, you might have things that don't look right and you're like, what's going on? Okay, so this is where we are again. A long time, it's been about 3 modules, about an hour and a half of recording since we last looked at this screen. Let's sign in. I created a super user by the name of bobby@didcoding.com. Let's hope we don't, if we get errors, who cares, right? We'll debug it. Happy days, right. Okay, so this, you can see if I look in user info, it's passing through my first name, last name, and email. My user account, it is not passing anything through, which is strange. I thought we added some stuff. Let's submit, let's update. Oh, there we go. It's in there now. Okay, so we've got all of this stuff. This is a random address locally. So we can change, should be able to change this to users. Bobby, let's go into my development directory. I've got a few projects in here. Development, let's go into decoding, backend, static, images, and a little old picture of me. Okay, submit. Okay, if I now update, you can see that it will be my image. Happy days. Okay, so all of that functionality still works. Got a core app, got a users app, still works as expected, which is fantastic. But now you can see that because we've got e-commerce in our installed apps, our navbar is showing a few things. Now we've got shop items. Template does not exist. This is the debug, Django default debug developer panel, okay? Saying, we're going to this URL, the template's not there. Well, it's not because we haven't created it yet. We're creating that in the next module. We're going to create the items, the item detail, the orders. There's a lot of copy paste, but essentially it's the same HTML, just repeated over and over with different headers and whatnot. So In the next module, that's what we'll be creating, and we'll then go into the admin page. We will create items, we'll render them to the front end, and we'll have a really, really good play. So the next one's going to be more visual. We'll be working in the browser a lot more. But you can see this is the panel. But if we look in templates, we've got none because there's an error. But if you look in request, you've got the e-commerce.views.views. So this is the debug panel that we've looked at. I think it was module 3 that we looked at, but it's fantastic. It really helps you identify what's going wrong or what's happening, what's in the request. This page here, really, really helpful. It tells you what's going wrong specifically, so you can debug it very, very quickly. Template does not exist. Template does not exist. It doesn't exist. We haven't created it yet, so of course it doesn't exist. But if I was to go into the project, go into e-commerce, and new file and call this, what would it be, items.html, update, lo and behold, it is in there. Got nothing in that HTML, but it is in there. So let's end it there, shall we? Look, if you can like this video and drop me a comment, massively useful. Also subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you're notified every time I end a video. Massively, massively helpful. So that's the end of this, module 13. I look forward to seeing you in module 14. That's it for now. See you later.